All right, well, welcome. Hi, everyone. We are here for the Revenue Operations Crash Course webinar. Thanks for joining. My name is Rob Manny, and I work at Inflectiv. And we're going to just give a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today, introduce the panelists, and then we will get rolling. So revenue operations is something that comes up a lot. It's a core thing of what we do, and it's an interesting thing that, a few years ago, it didn't really it didn't exist in the term that it exists in now. So I'm going to allow our panelists to introduce themselves. Then we're going to touch on what is RevOps for the people who are a little less familiar. Why does it matter? Big question. How do you know whether you need it? Is the next question. Then we're going to get into some of the core responsibilities that exist there, and then give you some tools or some steps how to build a RevOps strategy. And the idea that we're having with today's webinar is that there are people who have RevOps in their job title, and those people probably could teach this course. But for the people who don't have that as part of their day-to-day job description, there's still a lot of the core principles, a lot of the methodologies that you can start to use and apply to your work. So the goal is to give you that sense and really open the door to what we can do with it. So Derek is our first panelist, and he's from Tipalti. Derek, can you introduce yourself to the team?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Hi, everyone. I'm Derek McDonald. I've got just under a decade of RevOps experience, the first couple of years in a client-facing B2B sales ops role, the rest all in consumption-based sales models and SaaS companies. That's how I met Jessica. Thank you, everyone, for being here and for having me today.
Awesome. And for those that don't know me or haven't met us yet, my name's Jessica McAulay. I am what we call the sense maker here at Inflectiv. RevOps has been, like Derek, my life for the past 10 to 12 years, I guess, going on longer, before RevOps was really a thing, when RevOps could be anything. I have a love of all data and process and making things work and solving puzzles. So that's part of the reason I love my job so much and why we love Rev Operations. So we thought this would be a fun topic for everybody to learn a little bit about. All right. So Inflectiv, if you don't know who we are a consulting agency, although we don't like to call ourselves that very often. We really look at helping you accelerate your business. There is a strong focus on RevOps, which again, I won't touch on too much here, but we do some other things around marketing automation and processes and a lot of things. So pretty much if you need RevOps help, feel free to reach out. We're happy to help. And we will take it from there. All right. So our first up, we thought we'd start with a poll for you guys just to get a feeling about how knowledgeable you guys are or not around sales ops. So you'll see a little pop-up on your screen. If you can answer it, that would be great. Really what we're looking for, you're not familiar with it, you've heard the term and you understand a little bit about it, you're really familiar with it, or you're very proficient and you're just here to support and see if you can learn anything new. So we'll give you a second just to answer those. And I don't know how I see results. There we go. All right. So breakup is some people not familiar with RevOps at all. Majority of people have heard the term and understand a little bit about it, and that's probably why you're here. And then some people are quite familiar with it. So there you go. So welcome. We'll cover all those topics. So why does revenue operations matter? So let's start with what is it? So RevOps is a business function. I don't really want to read directly off the slide for you because you can do that, but that really focuses on optimizing your revenue growth. So we align around your customers to really bring together the different departments and remove the silos in the business. So really you're looking at sales, marketing, customer success operations, but really it really flows out everywhere, right? It's not just these places. You end up integrating with finance and you end up talking with your support, like all of your support teams, your IT teams. So it really ends up being everything, but it's really focused on driving revenue and unifying everyone around that customer, right? So that you really have one process that gives you all the visibility you need into your customer and your business. So it really allows you to take a full holistic look and break down any of those communication barriers. So, and data. As you'll hear me say, and which I love, data.
Yeah.
Got anything for me?
Yeah, like Jess said, most of those points touch on, the last one really drives home. RevOps is the glue that holds so many other teams together. You're really an essential resource for the org and so many individual people within it. But since you're involved with so many other teams and process, it's also important to know and define what RevOps is for your company and what it does not do to avoid mission creep. The goalpost on projects and even day-to-day work often moves over time. So it's good to know your stuff and define realistic boundaries to make sure you succeed.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right. So the way we look at RevOps, there are a lot of different views, and you'll hear different permutations of this grouping, but our focus is the 3 Ps. So it's your people, it's your platforms, and your process. So really the 2 big focuses are really the platform, how many tools you have, what the tools are, how they're integrating, how they're communicating, what process you go by to use those tools. So is it an automated process? Is it streamlined? Does it work for your sales team? Does it work for all the different departments? Is everybody communicating? So really defining those processes and how they work and everyone understanding who does what. And then last but not least is the people. So there are RevOps people already in your organizations. You may be one of them and just not necessarily know it, but people can slot in and move around and really be they're integral pieces in this process. But we find that sometimes you do need to change people, but for the most part, you can really work your processes to work for the team you have, as well as growing ones, if that makes sense.
Yeah, these 3 pillars can't function without each other, and they need to move in tandem as much as possible. So, like for example, if you leave your people behind through lack of training and development, the best platform and process in the world can't save you because the people don't know how to use it. For
It is
example,
not going to do a thing, not a bloody thing. All right. Okay, so these are some statistics. They're from a couple of years ago, but public companies that with revenue operations saw 71% higher stock performance, 19% faster growth in sales, and 50% higher profit. Now, we're not saying everyone is going to see these types of returns, but really affecting your revenue process and operations and unifying it makes a huge impact on the business and its ability to drive it forward and excel with growth. So these were just some that came from our HubSpot for us. All right, so we've got quite a list of tangible benefits for you guys. So this is what you're going to get out of it. So we really want you to understand how it can help. So we'll hop in here a little bit and give you some examples, but addressing tool sprawl is a big one, right? So that's how many tools you have. Like sometimes you'll have different departments using the same tools. Like one set of your departments are using one thing to do all of your document signing, and then another set of your departments is using something completely different, or to build your contracts, or to send emails, and the left hand doesn't know what the right's doing. So it allows you to align those things. You really are focused around your customer, which is always going to make a better process, but that's how the revenue operations people live. Your customer is the person that everything rotates around. Transparency and visibility for faster growth, right? The more you can see, the better insight you have, the faster you can grow. And I will not stop saying aligning departments and communication, because it just forces you to be together because you're all driving towards that same goal. There aren't goals that you're all aligned. There's no, hey, we want to do this and do that. Everybody's rowing in the same direction. Got anything in there for me, Derek?
Yeah. So remember, companies aren't static, right? They're hopefully growing. Even huge companies will merge with others, acquire each other, go public, go private. When that happens, there's bound to be duplicate platforms or overlapping in ways. RevOps can identify that and come up with solutions. Like imagine a global company where each region had its own CRM before all the regions merged. Now they've come together and you've got one legal entity at the top paying for a dozen different versions of Salesforce. So there's that kind of sprawl as well, and it needs to be identified and controlled.
And I think so. We may or may not have worked at a company together where that happened several times, but mergers and acquisitions are huge, but it's also the same for startups. So sometimes you go so quickly that you don't know what the other sides are doing, right? Like you're pivoting and making changes so fast. But M&As is a great example. People don't understand the impact of merging systems and integrations, data. data. But it really, having someone focused on this makes it so much easier, and then allows you to have the same process, right? Adapting and bringing in and layering on top with mergers versus just forcing someone to use a whole new system. Align.
Just one clarification. Is it just worth mentioning for the group, like what type of tools are we talking about, just to get their heads? So we talk about the
Totally.
CRM. So when we talk about tools, like what are some of the examples?
Sure. So your CRMs, Salesforce, your HubSpot, so those are your customer ones. You'll have marketing tools. So some people may be using MailChimp or a Pardot or other types of outgoing messages, anything to like an ERP. So the financial systems that your company is using, your Zooms that you're using, or whatever you're using for your web conferencing, whatever you're using for your data management or reporting, what are you using for your customer service, like Zendesk? Are you using Metabase? Are you using Domo? Are you using a data transformation tool? There's tons of tools that fall into this bracket. And really it's stopping that sprawl and bringing them back a little bit and making sure that everyone's using the same ones as necessary, or that they're communicating. But are there any other tools you can think of, Derek? But I think those are the main ones that I kind of.
Yeah, those are the broad categories, and the tools change over time as well, right? So you need to keep on top of what everything can do. And of course that gets really hard when you have too many. So there's so many benefits to keeping things under control and preventing sprawl.
Right. And so, and I'll keep going here. No, keep going. Rob, you're fine. I was just going to say there really, and one thing I guess we could have touched on a little bit earlier, and I don't remember if we have the slide in our deck farther down. I'm going to scroll down in my slides. Hold on. Is that how RevOps is structured right now is every single department has its own operations department, or a lot of people, you'll have marketing operations, you have sales operations, you have customer service operations. It's bringing that all under one roof in revenue operations, right? It's not having the individual silos. So each person doesn't have their own analyst. It's all in the same area. If that wasn't clear, if that's kind of what we're trying to say too, because that brings all the tools together as well. All right, so unifying process and systems, we've talked about that, optimizing them so they work best, removing those silos and encouraging collaboration. I have spent years at companies where everyone's like, you're just a connector, you talk to everybody, because that's what I love to do. But it's also how information flows and how you make your products work better and your systems work better. So communication is key. Reporting and improving revenue performance. You're never going to hear me say that I don't love reporting, but reporting is huge. Having the right data and having everyone looking at the same set of data is going to drive your business forward versus having Excels flying all over the place and people looking at different data points to measure their key performance indicators. Trying to keep everybody aligned is really a big part of this role. And let's just keep going so we don't kill too much time, I would say. Or do you want, we'll get you back in here at the end here, Derek. So, and really what this drives you to, making your data-driven decisions. You have huge impact with your data and it will impact growth. And then you can accelerate your sales cycle. You can usually make it go quicker. There are industries where it doesn't work as much, but we can definitely reduce the time and accelerate your ability to do that. Derek, my friend.
Yeah, so there's a lot in here, right? And Jess talked about, spending years kind of linking other teams together. The one that really stands out to me is unifying and optimizing processes, because that's the kind of thing that I love to do and really has served me well in my career. There's constant opportunities for improvement. And I mentioned the example earlier of multiple instances of a CRM being combined. So it's key to, and that's it came out in one sentence, but it's months and months of work to get that done and get it done right. So you have to distill and simplify as you're going along and make the right decisions at every step possible. So imagine,
and we're making it sound really scary right now.
not to do that, but to give like a real example, like imagine combining two different pick list fields with important client data, like account type. So whether they're a prospect, customer, ex-customer, whatever it is. So you've got two different fields that you're combining. They have the same information, but call everything by a little bit different name, and maybe they don't completely line up. Now imagine you like one field better than the other, but the worst one is harder to change because it's syncing with a legacy CRM. What do you do? So that's a classic example of something that's going to come up when you're doing these kinds of projects.
Yeah.
Just to give you a real example.
And we'll get down to this, but I have another idea of when things aren't working commentary, but hop forward for us, Rob.
Okay.
All right. So we'll cover a lot of this as we keep going in more detail as well. So this I thought was a great frame of reference. So Moneyball Your Business. If you've watched Moneyball or you understand what it is, it's about a baseball team that was really failing, and they took a more statistical and numerical approach. They treated baseball as a business instead of just baseball, right? So they came in, and you have data points everywhere in baseball, from the coaches for the different positions on the team, the overall coaches, the numbers, just the sheer numbers, and taking that and using it to help drive the team or the business forward. All the pieces working together in harmony to create a winning team or to create a successful company. So to me, it's a great kind of metaphor for what revenue operations can do for a business. You think of a baseball team as a business. So I just thought I'd throw that out there for a different chain of thought. How do you know you need RevOps? So these are some questions that may sound familiar to you. We have too many tools. Our process is broken. We don't know what's working and what's not working. We don't have a clear view of our customers, and we know there's a problem, but don't know what the cause is. And I'm going to add one more to this. It's always been that way. We don't know. It's always been that way. That is my least favorite response. We're doing it because everybody else before us has done it. No one's reinvented the wheel. So that one is a big one too. It's like, it's always been that way. So if you have these questions, if you are hearing these types of things in your business, it's more than likely that you need RevOps and some process help or improvement across the board. Yeah, it's okay. Do you have something, Rob?
I just like to add, it's the biggest thing for me is like, when you feel like the systems and the data that you have is working more against you than it's working for you, that's like, I think it's time to look at how you can make some changes that will just clear up a lot of things and move you in the right direction.
100%. Again, if the tools aren't working for you, then they're not the right tools, or they're not set up the right way. The tools should help, not hinder. That's what I like to say. All right, keep us rolling. So core RevOps responsibilities. We'll be a little dry, but we'll add some anecdotal for you. So in our heads, there's 6 core responsibilities. Okay, so you've got operations management, enablement, so of your different teams, be it sales or whatever it may be, insights and analytics, technology and systems, learning and development, and then compliance and regulations. So really the main ones that most people see and what we focus on are those operational and process management, and usually reporting are the big ones, but we'll dive into those top 4 in more detail here. So operations management. So again, these are some a little buzzword friendly, but business process innovation, cross-functional collaboration, project and change management, sales planning, and compensation. So everything that you think of under operations here fits the gambit, be it from KPI sales reporting to process management, like it says in here. So your comp management, territory management, changes of process or changes with teams. So like the migration projects, working with other teams to make things work. If they're not, be it your IT team, your data team, integrations, and then business process. It's just finding the best process for your teams that is the most streamlined and gives them the most time to be effective at their job and the least amount of administration. Anything in there for me, Derek, or no?
No.
All right. That one's pretty straightforward, and this is where you spend a lot of your time, or it's a lot of what we've talked about process-wise. And we're off.
Yeah, is there an example that may pop to mind that can illustrate this well?
So really, that merger planning, right? Planning to so for your operations, how do you get that in? Creating a pipeline or managing your sales process from start to finish. Territory planning, sales planning, these are all responsibilities that kind of fall into there. I don't have one specific one per se. You do it you've probably done it, and every person here's probably done it. They've developed a business plan, they've collaborated with other teams. It's just doing that on a larger scale across the business. Enablement. So most would think of this as sales enablement, but enablement happens on many forms. It's not just for sales, your marketing enablement, training, onboarding. So coaching, this all lives within RevOps typically. So usually you'll have sales trainers or you'll have training staff on hand. The enablement team sometimes also manages your technology stack. It really depends on what company you're working for. But it's really about keeping the training going. Derek mentioned earlier about staying on top of tools and things that are coming out, new things in process. So being sure that your sales team is using the tool effectively and that we're training them to do that to the best of their ability. But that there's a lot in there. We've implemented different systems. Like when I started, you didn't have like customer churn analysis systems. That's all they did. Like we found those numbers. You didn't have ones that helped you create just like automated lead flows. Like there's whole other systems that do that now. You used to have to follow up by email. You have to remind yourself set things. So tools and training and all of this is integral to the adoption of RevOps, as well as the continued growth and usage of it going forward.
Yeah, I'll add to that. As RevOps, you're not selling products, but you are like account managers in a sense, and your colleagues or your clients. And in large part, their success and even their retention, whether they stay at the company long term, is going to rely on how well they're enabled and set up for success. So that's training, but also given process that works, right? It's super.
100%. It's a great way of thinking of it. I like to call my customers are the internal customers, right? So any team, anybody that works, they're your customer. Keeping them happy and working is your key, and getting their buy-in and usage is also huge. But you find that comes easily if you keep them, if you can understand the benefits of what you're giving them, getting buy-in is pretty easy. All right.
I just want to jump in to mention, thanks for the questions that are coming in. Please keep them coming. We're going to save them a little bit till we get to the end, but we will have lots of time for questions. Yes,
and we will hop back to them. All right, so my favorite slide, analytics and insights, data. Data is a huge part of RevOps and is a huge part of every sales organization and every organization in general. In my opinion, businesses should be based on numbers, not guts. But really, data quality and management, ensuring where it's coming from, keeping it clean, we know what's happening to it. Access to the data, not having, oh, hey, well, our backend system that we built doesn't connect with our CRM, so we'll be sending out a dozen emails that are operational in nature. Oh, you have to do this, or we're doing updates to our system, or thanks for buying this. And then your marketing's sending out emails, and then your customers get, I don't know, 12 emails in the span of 2 days. Not really a good thing, right? So unifying those systems so that you don't have that happen and you're not making a negative impact with your tools. That's the other thing to consider, is always your customer's journey. How seamless is it for them? How positive it is for them, and all of that. But that's all, anyways, data, system communication, and having access to the right sets of data. And from there, we can build those operational insights, right? How long is it taking you to close? Are they getting stuck in a specific stage in their pipeline? Are they hitting their KPIs? Is there something holding us back? How far can we break it down? Can we segment our data? All of those types of things all fall in here, which give you those strategic insights that are aligned with that. So be them the core metrics for your business, what you're using for your C-suite, doesn't matter. That's all driven off the same set of data and aligned. So it can tell you, hey, this process isn't working. It can tell you that this is where we should be going with the business. But it can also say, how well is your sales team performing? So numbers. But keeping it clean and ensuring everyone has access to it are the big parts for RevOps.
Yeah, definitely completely agree. Data should inform, everything. It's also important to start with identifying what questions you're trying to answer. Before or while you're going after data, and have that evolve over time so that you're being targeted and spending your time on the right things. Figure out what you actually care about, and figure out what data will actually be used. Death by dashboard is a term that's thrown around a lot. Classic thing is having lots of ideas every quarter or at the beginning of every year, coming up with all these reports and dashboards that don't get looked at. Definitely always important in every aspect of RevOps to remember that time is money, and it's important to be focused and targeted in what you spend your time on.
Yes, agreed. And alignments, that's the big thing too. Like Derek is saying, completely agree. Setting these big targets at the beginning of the year doesn't always work, but ensuring the business is all aligned on the metrics and understands how they contribute to them and what you're going after and what actually drives your business forward versus just as what's kind of a fluffy metric that someone thinks is going to help them. So it's also being that peacekeeper too, right? And having everybody align and understand and drive towards the right results, not using things that give them what they want or the numbers they want. Alrighty. And last but not least on our 4 deep dives, technology and systems. So really having RevOps own all of the systems that are associated to your core customer experience makes the most sense. I'm not saying you need to own the ERP that your finance team is using. That's not what we're saying here, but really ensuring that your CRMs, anything that your sales teams are using, your customer service, your marketing team are all integrated and connected, evaluating those, seeing if there's any synergies. Can you save money? Do you need a new tool? What that tool should be, and how does it fit into the larger system? And also maintaining it, right? We come into a lot of places and they'll have a dozen different apps installed or integrations installed with their CRMs or their ERPs, and the data is just getting muddy because no one's actually looked at each integration to set it up properly or to say, hey, no, it shouldn't be automatically creating something and creating duplicate data. It should be doing this. People don't pay enough attention to that. Oh, well, this tool is going to do what I need it to do for sales, so we're just going to install it. No. But also, yes. So they need it, we'll make it work, but it's just paying attention to those things and keeping them clean, right? The administration, the integration, and the best practices around them, right? So who can create things, what type of fields we're creating, all of that type of stuff all rolls into this, but technology is huge and really aligning it is huge. Okay, cool. Keep rolling here because I'd like to have us have lots of time questions. So building a RevOps strategy. Now, there's many ways to do this. I like the 3 A's, okay? So whenever I'm approaching a problem, whatever it may be in the RevOps world, we're going to assess what it is, align, and assign, right? Because the whole point of this RevOps team is to not necessarily take on all the work themselves, but to keep everybody in line as well. So when you assess, you do that initial kind of discovery and you check into it, see what improvements you're trying to do, what's the output that we're trying to get to, where's the disconnect happening. So it's kind of like a mini discovery, if you want to think of it that way. How could it work better? What's the ideal state? And then get alignment on that, right? So usually it's one person bringing you a problem or a couple people, and then you'll start to see either a similar problem somewhere else, or you're hearing it from multiple people, or you know that you need to align it, right? So bringing in and aligning either the tech stack, whatever the training is, how the data is coming in, whatever that problem is you're trying to solve or that end goal you're trying to get to, aligning across the different places is integral. So it's meeting the needs for creating something that's useful and then assigning it, right? So you have to have key players. So whoever it may be, you need buy-in from up top in different departments, you need your champions and their ability to really manage those expectations, but they help you create that growth, right? And they help create that unified team. So it's setting expectations, being sure somebody knows who's doing what if it's not your team. Like we may set up a process for IT, but they take it and do something with it after the fact, right? We may not have all of the pieces it is, but ensuring that we're all aligned and assigning who's doing which pieces are the big parts to creating your strategy. Derek, if you got anything for me?
Yeah, all this is essential. It's not always easy though.
Nope.
Like an org can lose a lot due to turnover. So even if you're just trying to assess how things are, maybe one person ran the CPQ and they're gone and you don't have documentation. So assessing the current state might mean turning over some rocks. But if you make sure the people affected by changes have a seat at the table through every step of this, you'll
Yeah. And on that note, what we probably didn't put anywhere is document, because I'm pretty sure I might have been one of the people that had some of the information about the CPQ that left from different places. I know we have a lot of information in our heads. We have a lot of processes in our heads, and writing it down is integral. And it's one thing that we lack on a lot. But
one thing I'd love to ask the group, I see Jess do a lot of really good work where, of course, there's getting the alignment from the different heads of the departments, but also to find almost like the fellow travelers, like the people on each team who's like, they really like data as well, and they're hungry for more information, and they're almost like kind of looking to collaborate with someone like us. Like, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. No, I like to find either like-minded individuals. Usually when we get brought in, or when us or even RevOps in a business, when you get engaged, usually there's a problem, and there's a problem, but there's usually someone in the business that they either know what the problem is, or they're really on board with fixing it the right way. And those people can be so helpful, right? And they may just be someone that's like your power user to test out everything for you with your workflows, or the person that's just going to be that, hey, I have like, that will flag things to you, or is willing to give you what's not working, and really building those relationships. Like I find I build them with the data people, because they're the ones giving us the information. There's usually people in sales that are really like, oh, well, what about this? Can we do that? And they get really excited about it, and using that energy to bring the rest of the team along, as well as, for me, I kind of feed off of it because it's fun. But doing that kind of thing really helps with the to bring the silos down, for lack of better words, to really get everybody engaging the same way. But finding those people is just who engages with you, who talks to you, or who has the most objections sometimes too. That's always a fun one, because they can be your biggest proponent, right? If you work with them the right way. All righty. So this is my favorite slide, and I won't stop saying it. Data. It is literally the basic building blocks of your RevOps strategy. We talk about like foundational building blocks when I do a lot of talking with clients and different people. So there are building blocks that you have to have in place to make RevOps work, and your data is the base point of that. So really, I need this mug because, nice story, show me your data, because graphs can lie, data points can lie. That's why we need alignment. So that's okay. So our last one is this isn't our last slide, but we're getting towards the end here. But I thought this one would actually be helpful for that assign, align, or don't. Yeah, assign, align, assess, align, and assign. I can do this days today. These are the questions that we like to thank you, that we like to ask, or some of the like discovery questions, right? So when you're going in to try and figure out what the problem is, these are some of the questions. What are your growth goals, right? Or what are your business goals? Give me the concept, not what you're specifically trying to get to, so we can understand the larger problem, because sometimes people will bring you a problem and that's not their actual problem, but you have to dig a little bit. So what are your company's goals? What are we trying to achieve, right? What do you currently measure, or what do you want to measure, and what's your biggest focus? Because that really dictates what data you need, and we work back from it. What technology products do you use? So that's always a great question when you're dealing with different teams. What do we use and what's it for? What are their biggest pain points? And also, what is the thing that can have the biggest impact for them? I think that's a great one that I'm not sure we have on here, but sometimes it's almost really easy to ask somebody, it's like, what's going to help you the most, right? If there's one thing that they're doing that's taking them hours, let's fix that one thing to get that buy-in and to get them working. But just, so what's working and what isn't, or what would add the most value? Do you have someone that's in charge of this? Is there someone that's currently owning operations? Is there someone that should be owning all of it, or not? Which the case would be smaller companies. They bring in people like us who can bring you that experience without it. Larger companies, there might be multiple people that are doing the operations that need to be involved. What's the status quo, and do we need to keep the status quo? And is there a problem that needs to change? And usually that there is. What are the current workarounds? And then who are the stakeholders? Really, in the larger scheme of things, when it comes to your data, who are the key people that you need to be talking to, and your information? Who are the people that have the yay or nay say, and ensuring you understand what their needs are? So those are some questions that start you thinking in this mindset. I was trying to think if there's anything else at the top of my head. Do you have any more, Derek? Or is there anything like, it's just discovery. Just keep asking questions.
Yes.
And literally you will come down to it. what we do with this is you get a lot of information and outputs. You can do workflows from this. We can do customer journey mapping, right? So if you come in here and you do, so everybody should map their customer journey at some point, but understanding that and then taking all these different pieces of information and slotting them in together around that customer journey, right? So if we're saying customer journey, it could be just how they become a lead, or it could be how they process through your pipeline funnel for your sales team, or how do they contact customer support, right? And then, well, what tool are we using to contact the customer support? And is the turnaround time low? What's going on with the connections there? Is it just lack of notifications? Is that a different tool? And you can see the rabbit hole. I'm starting to go downhill because that's how you find the information you're looking for. So it's a lot of questions. W5H, right? Who, what, where, when, why, and how. Honestly, it answers.
Those questions covered so much, and just imagine what you can do at any org with the answers to all of these things.
Right. Or even the answers to some of them, because then you can start to build, right? And so what I like to do, and we won't spend a lot of time on the next slide, but I like to put kind of some of this information into a framework in my head, right? So what's the strategy? Is it aligning with everything else? What are the processes that need to happen? What are the workflow designs, your data, your analysis, and your technology? So these are all the pieces that will all fit into every strategy or problem you're trying to solve, and the different options that you have in them. So sometimes you need to create a data dictionary, right? Sometimes it's, if we take that, the last one I just gave you, take that example. How do they become a lead? Well, what's the strategy for getting them to a lead? What's the process? Do they come onto your website and fill out a form, and then that form comes in and notifies your sales team? Or is it a cold outreach? Are there any workflows? Are there handoffs that are designed between teams? Do you have a BDR team or an IR team that's handing off to your sales team or account management? What are the flows there? Your data, how much are we capturing when they submit? Are we doing it legally? Is it compliant? Does it head all of your different things you need for where you're located or where other people are located? Are we analyzing it? Is it working? What's the efficacy? What's our attribution data? And then the technology behind it. What tools are we using? Are we using too many? Are they the right ones? So this will fit into every kind of problem I try to solve, or most of them. But I just thought it's a different framework too for those of you that may think slightly differently or more linearly.
Just to chime in on this one. So this is just a sample. Really, whatever framework you feel is designed to address the problem that you're facing is the key. But it's like, for all those questions and those 3 Ps that we talked about, putting them down, documenting them in a place that you can say, we've taken it out of a tool, we've taken this process out of this abstract place, we put it down somewhere, then it allows you to share it and say, is this right? Do we want to do this? Do we want to change this? What do you think?
So long story short to that is RevOps is a big combination of bringing a lot of process planning data all together into one thing and tying them together. However you get there, our process may not be the exact same one as you, but you're using the same steps in your own way. And so it's really about strategy and what's best for the customer, what's best for your internal and external customers, and driving that revenue growth. So and doing that within your teams, right? So for those of you that have smaller teams, we'll pop to the next slide here. You may have people on them that already have the skills to be a part of a RevOps team and don't know it, or I'm scared to move into something, or how do I know we have the right people? So RevOps, like members, there are different roles, but in general, skills, you need to be a strategic thinker. You have to be a good communicator. You have to want to work with other people and collaborate on things, solve problems. You'll need at least one person who's numerical and technical and understanding of the need of these things and understanding the efficacy of data. And then the customer perspective. You always have to be able to put yourself into the customer's shoes, be it internal or external, and understand their problems so that you can solve them. If you can't do that, you won't be successful at what you're doing.
Yeah, all these skills are essential. They all tie in to each other, really. Everywhere that I've worked, there's so much institutional knowledge that lives within each RevOps team member. And it's so important to have the right team. Not everyone's built for a RevOps role. It's a tough job. We need to balance having and building up skills as well as building relationships across the org to really be effective. Introverts tend to be the people who are really good at Excel. And you might not think of sales ops, RevOps as a social career path, but on any given day, I'll talk to 40, 50 plus people, and you're spinning plates at all times. It's important.
you're keeping the whole thing going, I think is a good way to look at it too. Spinning all the plates, keeping everything going, or all the balls in the air. But yeah, it is. There are people that are more suited to it. I will say that. But if you're in a smaller organization or a tighter one, I'm willing to bet you have some of the people you already need to get this done, or people that are willing to take it on. In the larger environment, yeah, definitely, you may not have the right people. You may have people that are better aligned to maybe doing more of an analyst role than the strategic thinking and planning, but you can really structure a team around these kind of core values or skills. There you go. And then our last slide, I think, is just around some additional information. The RevOps Co-op is a great group of people. They got a Slack channel. They're awesome. We love them. Lots of great communication, conversations, and lots of learning. Or if you got a question, they're really helpful. HubSpot Revenue Operations Certified. What were we referencing here?
That's an online certification that HubSpot offers for free. HubSpot's really good at giving away a lot of great content. And so they have a certification that you can do as well as different courses. So
there's a bunch of different modules. Yeah, which is really interesting. And then we also have our link to what is revenue operations, which is just some information blogs that we post about and things around that nature. So we'll send this out later and you guys can get access to those things. And then I think we'll open the floor to questions here. Feel free. I think there were a couple already that we can dig. Oh, there's a lot. Okay.
I'm just going to suggest we start with Daniel's.
Daniel. Okay. What are the elements of RevOps where cost can really creep up with growth? And how would you prepare for this from the outset? Platform costs, storage, API connectivity costs. Right. So do you want to tackle this, Derek? You want me to jump in?
Yeah, like a real example is if you're not predicting what your business will be in a year or 2 or 5 from now, your costs can really blow up over that time. If you don't know how many sales reps you're going to have in 12 months, for example, you'll be paying more for every single license. So that's just a quick real example of how that can happen.
So what I would say to you is the elements that can really end up costing you, your CRM is a big one. And all the different features and things that come with it, and understanding what you do and don't need at levels of your business. What I would recommend and what we usually do is suggest to clients that they use a platform that they can grow with. So we keep talking about HubSpot, and we don't just work with HubSpot. I promise you, it's just easy to explain. For smaller businesses, HubSpot has different starter plans. They don't have as many elements, but you don't need as many in the beginning necessarily. Or you can do some workarounds, or you're using a couple systems to make it work. But as you grow to the enterprise level, it can grow with you. But planning that from the outset will help you get better, like Derek's saying, better rates and understanding. But it's also managing things. So what I will say to you is a lot of cost comes around data. And I think you're alluding to this as well, Daniel. Your platforms do end up costing you. That's why we try and do alignment. So if someone's sending out emails, let's all use the same email provider to send out platforms. CRM costs start to shoot up when you talk about marketing, when you start talking about the headcount of people in it, or how many people need to have access to it. And then when you get to storage, because as your data starts to grow, your data storage from your warehouses to your lakes to even just your API limits, right? So there are set limits with most products and you have to work within them. So understanding the difference between a batch update through an API or individual ones, and really understanding how, sorry, I just read somebody else's comment and it's making me laugh. But it's really around those pieces is where we see the most money, or when people buy things that we don't use. That's a big one. But creep growth, yes, I would say your data storage and understanding and keeping it succinct and not storing more than you need to. Like some companies will build tons of models and things, and you'll have tons of data that you don't need, or multiple storage warehouse, or redundant storage, or so platforms is going to be the biggest. Data will probably be the next one. Your CRM is also one that will creep. Based on who wants to do what. So I hope that kind of answered that question. I'm going to read the comment that says, observation, RevOps sounds like the business equivalent of Revenge of the Nerds. And yes, I agree in some ways, but it's not just that. It really is taking that more numerical approach to it. It doesn't take all the fun out of business, right? If you're in sales, or we focus that way, where it's more of an art and a craft, but it does really bring it down to numbers. And I'm just that way as well. So I also put that spin on it probably more than most may. But centralized or decentralized. So this is from Michael Hertz, not a question, but more note-taking. RevOps is centralized or decentralized? It's centralized. So hold on, did we have that image, Rob, in our deck somewhere down below of the structure? Yeah,
yes,
can you throw that up on the screen?
Yes.
This is going to touch on two questions because there's also an organizational structure question that popped up here. So how RevOps or how operations is typically structured in a lot of standard businesses is like this. So you'll see on the left-hand side, we have the VP of marketing, and then you'll notice all the little white ops roles are marketing ops, marketing tools, business analyst, data person, whatever it may be. Same thing with sales. You got sales ops, sales tools, sales enablement, business analyst, and then customer success, same idea. You've got people for this in each one. If you take it to the right-hand side of the screen, what would happen is they still have all of their roles, but you have a centralized red column at the end there that brings in your operations, your enablement, your insights, your tools, that does it all for all of those pieces of business. So centralized, long story short. But this is also how you see a lot of structures. Now, within these, you'll see more roles, like you'll have data scientists or you'll have other pieces, but it can be, yes, it can be both.
And Jess, this is good. Michael left another comment at the bottom, a question. It relates to your answer. I just want to just take a quick look at it, see if there's any builds you want to make.
So really, okay, hold on one second. So sorry, I'll read this out for you. So RevOps is a universal approach to a company whereby sales RevOps focus just on sales, or marketing RevOps, CS RevOps, and so on. So it's not that you would have RevOps for all of them, it's taking all of them and bringing them together. So the need for the company is really that communication and that insight, right? So if your marketing team doesn't know how well their leads are doing within the sales operations, or that handoff isn't working well, that's a need, right? Like that's a way you can improve your sales goals. It can improve your bottom line. It can improve your process. So to me, that's what the need is in the companies, is really to align and push forward, right? So you want the better customer experience. You don't want it to be kind of like janky in between things, like your ability to get to someone and not be able to respond. And really just, so alignment is the big one, visibility and revenue driving. So everyone's on the bottom line. Everyone wants to make the most sales and keep the customers happy and keep them coming back. So to me, for any really SaaS-based business company, that is an integral need for the company. And just reporting, financing, do any types of rounds of seed funding or reporting if you're public, or even just your quarterly reporting to your CEO. If you aren't all looking at the same set of information, you're not giving an accurate picture of your business, and you can't drive your business accurately. Does that make sense? Like if someone's looking at apples and someone's looking at oranges, you're not looking at the same thing, but you all think they're driving in the same direction and you're not. So those are the alignment things that we're looking for.
Yeah, it's like a holistic view for the company for things that already exist and maybe aren't, the different branches of the company that aren't talking to each other in the way that they should be. That's what RevOps is.
So we also had a question around what's our favorite tool for documenting and storing process. Now that one gets a little tricky. I will come down to say I usually end up in like Confluence or something like that, because again, it's a database. I can build my data dictionaries in that. It's all connected to like your Microsoft things, but you can really do them in a lot of different places, right? So some people have their living documents that are in your SharePoints or your Excel. Some people will actually create pages that document all the different things and the processes and the steps. Typically, they're living documents that we store in files at Cision. I used to work at a company called Cision. We used to store them on the drive, but they would all be documented and have the same like format and layout, but they would all just be saved into a drive because we'd be sending them out or people would go in to access them, that were then accessible by the entire company. But again, you can also use, it depends on what we're storing, right? So for those ones, it depends. If you want to be Excel based, I prefer to write in Excel. Some people prefer to do PowerPoint. Some people prefer PDF. So it's really what enablement tool works the best for you guys. some companies also even have like enablement tools. So like a place that actually is just a storage spot for everything, like a high spot, though those are usually more used for sales. You can also use them to store. So a centralized place. So it's agnostic. I wouldn't say I have one specific. It depends on the company.
Yeah, me too. I'm still looking for the one. But anything that lets you like search within documents to find what you're looking for. Because my experience has definitely been one pagers are great, two pagers are okay. Anything longer than that tends not to get read, especially by the sales team. So you need the capability to search within documents as well. Anything that lets you do that in a quick way, a way that's also organized, because you have some documents that are going to be for the entire company, some that are only for sales, some only for sales ops, all of that. Anything that lets you do that, I think should be the goal.
Yeah, and so
I was just going to chime in as a newbie relative newbie to new revenue operations. The big jump for me was to get to something like a Lucid, which has really good process mapping. Because I was trying to do that in like PowerPoint initially, and it's like, wow, it's just not designed for that. And having if you check out Lucid or any of these any of these sort of whiteboard type of apps, there's actually the symbols have different meaning for where a process starts, what a transformation,
decisions,
and it's just a decision exactly. And there's an unlimited amount of space, so you just can kind of move over and around in ways that you can't do in other software.
Using a Lucid chart or something that can give you like a workflow diagram, we usually find is a great way to store process or documentation that doesn't require a lot of reading, right? So it's kind of like, these are the steps. It doesn't necessarily tell you, oh, hey, go click here like a walkthrough tool would, but it says if they need a quick one-page decision-making tool or tree to know what they need to do next, those are very helpful as well. So really, that one we're agnostic on, but whatever your business is using as to store its files and storage will usually have something that you can use. Or additional ones, you can go, if you get into like GitHub, those ones will start to do things too on the more technical side. So it really, there's a lot of tools out there. It's company.
Yeah, I've used SharePoint as well with success. I don't know if I'd call it my favorite, but it's an option.
Yes. Definitely. All right. So we talked about the organizational structure. Yep, there's the Lucid chart link if anyone would like to see it. All right, so we have another question. I like the silo busting aspect of renewal operations. And what advice do you have for company making a shift to RevOps? Communicate, communicate, communicate. And the biggest one is crawl, walk, run, fly if you need to. But a lot of it is really working through processes with people to ensure that they work. So I like to think of an MVP. So you create your minimum viable product, you put it in front of somebody, like you create the baseline process, you give it to somebody and let them play with it, be it that your tester, whoever it is, and then you refactor it. You come back and say, okay, what's working and what isn't working. Really being iterative is going to help companies that are trying to get into this, right? The biggest ball is getting the ball rolling forward. And what I would say too is the biggest place to start would probably be your metrics and trying to align the company to it, right? Small steps, start helping your sales team, start figuring out the communications and your tools, but bigger steps, if you're wanting to start at it, is really aligning those metrics and ensuring that everybody is driving towards that same goal. So
yeah, and experience goes a long way too. You need someone or people with experience making that kind of shift and doing that type of work, balanced with any stakeholders within the company who might have decades or more of institutional knowledge. That combination is definitely necessary to make the shift to RevOps.
Gotcha. I think that's all we have. Does anybody have any last questions for you? For us? No. All right. Well, we will send around that deck. I believe Rob will send a link out to that and other things. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Our emails are around, websites, LinkedIn. We're happy to chat. And then if you have any more detailed questions or you didn't want to ask it here, please, happy to answer them or give you our 2 cents. So feel free. And I hope you guys have a great day and thanks for coming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.